Okay, good. Where were we?
David, if I could make a comment on the potential revision of the policies.
Yes.
So the points that are being made are very important, but I think that we need, if we're going to be having a revision, drive them to what the goal of the policy is. And just to refine this, to expand, to allow, in essence, scope to be expanded further, I think doesn't bring us to what the purpose of CORC is. The question I think that we would want to direct staff is, do we want to have narrow discretion, which would remove the oversight function, or a much broader discretion?
I guess I don't know what you mean in terms of how the policy would be adjusted based on that comment.
Well, what I'm hearing is that potentially we're saying to staff, redraft the policy so that it's not only items, or that it would include items that were unanticipated, which would significantly broaden or would significantly reduce the oversight function.
I don't know if it changes anything from what we're doing now. It just helps everybody to be maybe on the same page, because I'm not hearing that legal has come back saying whatever staff is using the contingency for is not allowed. I'm hearing more it's in the gray area instead of the black and white area.
And as we define that, do we want to give direction to staff as to which side of that gray area do we want it to be clarified on?
David?
Yes.
If I may.
Yeah.
Michael, I think all the things that I've seen in the past that staff has been using the contingency for, although not in compliance with the policy, are things that have to be done and make sense. I don't think they've abused it up to this point. So if there's some language that can be put into the revised policy that someone can say that, but I think they have a good idea how to use it. They just need to put it into words. I don't think they're going to abuse it and say, okay, all of a sudden now we need to remodel the principal's room or office or something like that. They're going to use it wisely, I believe.
Right. Well, I think it would get used the same as it's been getting used. I think it would just help eliminate things where we're not both on the same page of what staff needs to use it for and what reasoning is coming back to CORC. I don't see anything changing except that everybody, even going down the road years from now, will be operating under the same set of rules.
Yes, and John, I think what David's alluding to, we are, hopefully we're trying to build that trust that we aren't trying to stretch this. As a matter of fact, we had a roof. One of the items on this month is an expansion as a change order. We were doing roofs on Northmore. We were already doing roofs on FCA, on a facility renewal project at Northmore. And we realized, oh gosh, we missed a whole roof. It got a lot worse than what we had anticipated. So it was $168,000 or something like that. That's not one I'm going to look at the contingency, just because even though it might fall into the quote unquote quantity concept, it made sense. That needed to be going to the CORC and to the board as a change order, regardless of the dollar value. We're trying to be cognizant of what's staying within the bounds of our approval authorities as well.
Okay. John, you had pulled FC1. Would you like to make a motion or not?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and make a motion to move FC1 forward to the board.
Okay. Virginia, you can second it. Raise your hand. Thank you. All right. Anybody have any objections to FC1 going forward? Okay. Hearing none, FC1 is fine. We are done with contingency.
I have a comment. I'm watching Frank Barbieri having a separate meeting on his own and having a grand old time, waving his hands and and totally ignoring us.
I think he's had his hands full lately.
I think he slept there overnight.
Frank Simon's presenting. Okay, Frank, did you click the wrong button, Frank? Did everybody else get Frank Simon's presenting popping up on their screen? Yes.
Yes. Frank, if possible, I think you do need to click on the stop presenting. There we go.
Okay. All right, we are done with consent, facility, and purchasing, and we're now down to FCA progress.
Okay, this is my fun portion of the project of the meeting. Like I said, I'll do the construction updates, and then after this, I will jump over to the new design projects, new tool that we're going to try to use. All right, can everyone see the PDF, the
Yes.
construction updates?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Again, this is very similar to every other, all the past months. I'm going to kind of zoom through a lot of these because they're very similar to what you've seen before. So this is our monthly update of the funding and the expenditures, as well as our participation. So our diversity participation still seems to be pretty strong, both with contractors and designers. This upcoming solicitations, this is something that everyone started to really kind of press us on. This is more like our vision of what the next 6 months worth of solicitations will look like. So we've got a number of projects that, and actually this was probably created a few days ago. Grove Park and 17 Double P are in process right now. I think, David, you sat in on a selection committee the other day. Grove Park, or shortlisting. So we've still got quite a bit of work coming up. The bottom ones down here are all the facility renewals that are going to be coming up for next year. There's a few of them. This is more for you board members to see which ones, which GMPs are probably coming at us in the coming months. As you'll see, we've got the 3 that are on this month we just went through. Next month, we'll have Jupiter Elementary's facility renewal, and at least the Plumosa School of the Arts 6 to 8 expansion phase 1. We may actually do the whole thing, depending on how far we progress. And then in the coming months, September, we've got Pahokee, North Grade, and South Olive facility renewals all coming your way. So they're all in the hopper right now, and we're in negotiations and tweaking, or some of these might have been on this month's. The development activities, I'm not going to go through them all one by one, but a couple of points. Grove Park, as I mentioned, that's out for solicitations right now. Roosevelt full service, we're working through our Castaldi and starting to prep for putting that project out for improvements. On the next screen here, I've got Delray Full Service is well underway with design. Actually, well, it's early in the design. I'll get to, that's one of the ones I will do. Plumosa School of the Arts. That design is basically done. It's ostensibly done. We're tweaking to try to get the GMPs all lined up so that we will be starting very shortly. O5C, I'm very excited about this. This has been a long time in the making. We have got our due diligence together and working with the architect who's under contract to be able to start putting the design forward. And we need the property, and we've had a great partner in working with the city so that they can convey the property we need to be able to build O5C. We anticipate we're working through acquiring the property from the city by probably around January. because our funding is based on owning the property. So we will be looking to try to start construction on this next summer, starting construction next summer. Triple O is underway. I'll get to that. It's another one of the ones that I'll do a little presentation on. And 17 Double P, the Boynton Middle School at Sunset Palms. We've just started the design, and we're working with the County Parks Department to try to work out some logistics of possibly sharing some services so that we get, both of us get some economies of scale, save some money, because we do have a good working relationship with the county and their Parks Department. Again, ongoing facility renewals. We've been working on facility renewals nonstop. One of the big points that we've made is because the schools were literally closed this summer, we had even more flexibility to get even more work done in the schools. However, that will stop very shortly. As I mentioned earlier in my remarks, that regardless of the approach that the board might take next week, we are focusing our construction activities to end the summer construction phase by August 3rd. And then beginning what we call, I guess, the fall-winter phase, where we will be doing smaller projects that can be stopped and moved out quickly, especially if the decision is made at any given point to return kids to school. Our facility renewals. I'm not going to go through all these in great detail, but you can see this first page, we've got 3 schools that have got a lot of activities going on. There's a few more. Timber Trace is finishing up, so is Duncan right next to it. But Wellington Elementary had got a lot of work done this summer. And a couple of pictures of, missed a slide. Okeechobee Middle, Coniston, and Northmore. Okeeheely's well underway. Northmore just got started, but we're making some good progress on that as well. Now I'm into photos. So the facility renewals, here's some of the photos of some of the work that's gone on at Okeechobee Middle. Flooring's a big improvement out at that site. Northmore, painting some doors, light fixtures, roof drains, fixing roof drains to avoid leaks, necessary facility improvements. And Coniston, you'll even notice there we've paving operations out there, as well as elevator work. Okay, now we're getting into the bigger items, the bigger projects, our modernizations. As I mentioned in my earlier remarks, Verde's K-8, we do have TCOs on the main 3 buildings. You'll notice it says buildings 1, 2, 3, and 4. Building 4 is the play shelter, the PE shelter. And unfortunately, that company that provides that shelter was hit with the coronavirus impact, and it slowed down their production. So we are expecting that we'll have that done within the next 2 weeks. So even that shelter will be done. But right now, all of the main buildings, the 3 main buildings, are all TCO'd and ready for occupation. Furniture deliveries ongoing. We're finishing up some of the site work. And as far as the holding school, Addison Meisner has already been moved over into the holding school. Verde has been moved out and moved into the new building, and Addison Meisner is on their way to being able to start in early August in the holding school, if that becomes the case. Here are some photos. Now, I want to preface, these photos were actually from June 15th. They're flying the current photos today. A lot of this has improved. A lot of the dirt has already been landscaped, and you can see the trees are in and whatnot. So this looks quite a bit different. This is basically a month ago. It was the best aerial photos we could get. But it is dramatically improved, and it is ready to be open. We're excited about that. As far as grand openings, I'm I've talked with Glenn, and as I understand, oh, by the way, the reason Glenn's not doing this portion of the presentation is because he's at an OAC meeting right now, making sure that everything's lined up so that they can be ready to be opened. As far as the public communications and the grand openings, that kind of thing, Glenn has indicated that he's been working with the communications department and the principal. The principal has indicated that they're leaning towards doing more of a grand opening once school gets open and the kids come back. So while they are doing 10, our communications group is doing videos, and they will be posting shortly of the progress on this school. The actual grand opening, dedication, that kind of thing will likely be done in a few months, say, when we do get back to whenever that is that we get back to having kids in the schools. Okay. South Tech at Odyssey, also another project that is planned to be open by August 10th for start of school. And we are basically there. We are done with all of our interior work. We are doing punch lists. We have one final inspection. We have one hurdle on this project, and it's the water meter. And I'm trying not to bash anybody, but we've had a lot of challenges with water utilities on several of our projects, Palm Beach County Water Utilities, getting meters for these projects. This is one where they had some last minute changes, and it affected our ability to get water. We're pushing. We expect to have water very shortly. With that, we'll get final inspections and TCO on this facility by August 3rd. South Tech is currently already delivering FF&E from their old site, because this is a charter, or a what's the quasi-charter school. So they are responsible for themselves for moving themselves out of their old school and into this new facility. As a reminder, you may all know that South Tech at Odyssey, the actual interior of the building had some improvements done to it, as well as a lot of the facility renewal-based things. We had to, inside the existing Odyssey building, we had to make changes to the layouts, to the facilities, because they have culinary, medical, cosmetology, and veterinary programs that needed customization. So inside the existing building, we had to do some of that work. All that work is done, and all those programs are ready to be utilized. You might also remember that we have a new building that we constructed. That's the automotive programs, and that is also up and ready to go. It was a Herculean effort. Both of these projects, I'm so proud. I'm so happy for the team that put both of these projects, the Verde project as well, this South Tech to Odyssey project together. They both literally started last June. And this August, within 13 months, they were able to get both of these done. Verde is masterful in the fact that they got an entire school knocked down and built a new school in 13 and a half months. This one is the same way. The efforts that were done by Wharton Smith to get this job done on time have been Herculean. In addition, Wharton Smith has been helping us on that South Intensive temporary relocation project, and that is also on target to be ready to be occupied for the beginning of the school year, August 10th. Here's some photos from the South Tech. These are photos inside the the old Odyssey building, if you will. These are some photos. The bottom one is a photo of the cafeteria, because the cafeteria at Odyssey has been split into two, and one is one half of it is the actual cafeteria for the students. The other half is the culinary arts program. So good use of the space. The buildings on the top are the new garage bay building. And then the third of our big projects that are opening up is adult ed. And again, this is a project that when you see the photos, you're going to kind of question, why is this not open? It looks 100% done. And the one challenge that we have right now, while we don't have a CO, is we don't have a water meter. Same problem with water utilities. So we're working through those details, and we expect within the next week or so we will have that water meter in place and able to do our inspections and get our projects open for the beginning of school. As you'll see by these photos, this one looks like it's basically sitting there done. The only thing only other challenge we have on this project is along this frontage down here, we have a deceleration lane, a right turn lane that's going to be constructed out there. Another challenge that's outside of our control. There's a pole right here. It's an FP&L pole, and we've been trying to get them to take it down. They're going underground with all their electrics. So that pole is preventing us from constructing the deceleration lane. That won't affect our ability to open the campus and utilize it. We'll even be able to build the deceleration lane while the campus is open and operational. But it'll be a little while on that deceleration lane. But otherwise, again, another project. Hedrick Brothers did a fabulous job of getting this project moved forward for completion by August. Here's some of the photos of the interior and a photo looking out over the parking lot, the front entry. Okay, the next project is Washington Elementary. You may recall this is a project that we are in demolition and just starting up our stem walls and footings. We've finished our demolition, putting stormwater in. You can see some of the photos. The footings are laid out. Concrete's getting poured. So it's a grind, but it's definitely moving forward at a good pace. And this is also a project that we anticipate having ready and operational by next August. Okay, Addison Meisner another project. Both these two projects, Addison Meisner and Washington, are Angel Garcia's projects. So he's kind of on the same page on both of them. They both just got started. Demo. Addison Meisner was knocked down the moment we said school was over at the beginning of June. And you could see they've basically finished their demolition, their vibro compacting, getting the site ready for the new footings. Old DD Eisenhower. This is a facility that I know this seems like it's my reference was this feels like we got to the 5-yard line and then we got to our knees and are crawling ourselves across the goal line. But it will be complete, and we're basically at 95% of virtually everything. We will be complete for the August opening because the field and the space is going to be utilized by the new DD Eisenhower School. I say new, last few years. It's a big open site, driveway, a little bit of parking. Jupiter High School modular classrooms and other improvements. As you'll note, all 26 classroom units have been installed. The primary electrical service on a previous change order that y'all had approved is in press. In addition to the modulars, which I'll show you in these photos right here, you can see here's the whole kit and caboodle. We are going to be building a restroom building in this space for full occupation. But it is very likely that we're working to try to get probably around 8 of these modulars, the ones that are closest to the main building. We anticipate getting those ready for occupation at the beginning of the school year, sometime in August. I'd say we're talking about the 2nd or 3rd week of August. We could actually get 8 of these modular classrooms activated and ready for use when and if the time comes. But as I allude, the parking expansion, I don't have any photos of it, and it's a shame because it's right down the street from me. The parking expansion has been underway. They've cleared the site, and the rock base is basically done. They've installed the light poles. This is also a project that they've really pushed forward very quickly, and we anticipate that the parking lot will be able to be used by students. I think this is overflow parking for students by late August, early September. That's what we're shooting for. And that's the end of those, the big new construction projects that I've got for now. As you can see, we've got 181 total projects, 86 that are in process right now. So our minor projects folks are extraordinarily busy. Security projects, they keep pushing along, and we've got those 10 single point of entry projects that are we're working on right now. We're getting the guys under contract and moving the work forward. And that is the completion of our construction process. I want to stop here and see if there are any questions.
Yeah, Dave, I've got some. Are you finding any issues coming up with supply stream delays? Because I know in my projects, AC equipment is in short supply. I know for residential, I got one builder with exhaust fans. They're putting an exhaust fan in the kitchen, getting final inspection, then moving that exhaust fan to the next storehouse to get a final inspection because exhaust fans are not in supply. Whirlpool hasn't shipped appliances in months.
We're having a little bit a challenge, but a lot of our contractors are bigger guys that have a little bit more buying power, a little bit more control over the situation, and they are working with us to manipulate the situation. They'll take, as you said, they'll take something from another project that they might be able to move over. We're having problems. We've had, I just saw one of the guys ask me, we're having problems getting things like soap dispensers.
Yep.
Things as simple as that shouldn't hold up the opening of a school or the improvements of a bathroom being occupiable. But even things as simple as that, we've been seeing some challenges.
What I've been seeing is that things that get made in a factory, the factories have been shut down. And so once the inventories are gone in the local supply stream, you're not getting more until the factories are able to open up again.
And you're right. That's actually dictating. Remember, I said earlier that our contractors are getting their projected schedules for what they were going to do in the fall and winter to us now, so we can start planning. But that is playing a big role in their plans. They're letting us know that, we're not going to get our hands on certain air conditioning units like we anticipated. So we're going to have to defer some of that till next summer. We're going to put the orders in now, and hopefully we'll have it by next summer.
Right. Water meter has been coming up with Palm Beach County Utilities for at least a couple schools. Is this something that needs to be escalated up the political chain to have some higher up people tapped on the shoulder to say, get your act together, people?
We're working on that. Working on that. Again, I don't want to throw water utilities under the bus, but I will.
Yeah.
There were some instances where we had notified them in November of, put in our application, put our plans in, and said, we really need to get this going. And by March, because we're going to cut them slack and say, well, when everything fell apart with COVID in March, yes, maybe they didn't have the ability, but between November and March, we should have been able to get the responses back from them, and we weren't. We ended up having to kick them all along and get some. We just got progress. We basically came to them at the end and said, guys, we're about to open, and we can't if you don't get it going, and they did. So we're working on that, but I don't want to take this to being a major issue just yet. This isn't the kind of thing that needs to have our board member talking to Virginia Baker or anything like that. This is stuff we're still working through with staff, senior staff at Water Utilities, and with us.
David Porter.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, David Dolan. It's been my experience, and I don't know if this is your situation, but typically they hold up the water meter because as-built aren't correct or haven't been provided. And I suspect that may be the case here, but as you suggested, they're not going to hold up opening the school because they don't have the as-built. So when you get down to the crunch, yeah, someone just needs to call the utility director there and say, hey, we're working on the as-built with you, and please give us the water, and I'm sure they'll accommodate you.
And that is correct. That is correct. And in fact, we've done that recently. Again, I want to pat some of the guys at Water Utilities. Joe Lambert, with all the challenges we've had, Joe Lambert has been an absolute, a magician recently. He's been helping us get that stuff done. So again, when push comes to shove, they can get it done, and they have been. It's just getting there is the challenge. So, like I said, we're going to make sure that this happens. This isn't going to fall by the wayside.
My final question, is Leanne on the line still?
I believe so.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Dave, you noted that you're planning kind of 6 months ahead. So, Leanne, do we have any June sales tax figures in to know if we're going to have a money stream to continue with FCA work at the pace where we think we can?
We have the money that came in May. We do have that. It came in so close to my projection, it spooked me a little bit. It was at 38% of our original projection and 41% of what we've been seeing, and I'd projected 40. So that's a percentage we're off. So it was off, and that's what we projected. We're continuing to monitor. I'm very anxious to see the numbers that will come in for July, which should be late next week, early the following week, usually between the 25th and 27th, depending on the day of the week. So it's right in line with projections. So with those revised projections where I thought we'd be off by 40% for 2 years, it may be better this month. What I've heard, we got a letter from the Senate president saying that the revenues were up. So I need to see what it looked like for Palm Beach County. I mean, statewide numbers are really important for the general fund because that's how our operating budget is funded. But when it gets to this, I need to see the Palm Beach County numbers. So a couple weeks from now, we'll just continue to monitor it. And so far, we're in line with what I had guessed. So we'll see how that plays out. Hopefully, this virus goes away, gets better. We can open school. I mean, the sooner that virus goes away, the better off we all are for so many reasons. But we're monitoring. In fact, I've got both my screens right now have sales tax numbers on them, where I'm updating things for the auditors for year-end projections, updating for the budget. So yeah, I don't think there's going to be any problem with moving on with projects. The facilities team was really helpful. Just as an aside, this is something that I bring up to ISOC, and it's more important for the finance committee, but we have a line of credit in place for the sales tax to make sure things continue to move as we wanted. One of the things that we've seen with the recession is that companies, as soon as they started to see the economy go down, they all drew down on their line of credit. So they wanted to have the extra money in their bank, just like all of us wanted to have money and stop spending. We wanted to make sure we had cash in case. So when we went to the bank saying we need to increase the line of credit as was originally planned, they said, well, we can renegotiate the rate. And the rate went up, it more than doubled. So what we did was went back to Dave and said, I was drawing, the line of credit is set up. We're not actually drawing on it. We're using it. We're paying an unused fee. It's there for budgetary purposes. So if we don't have the line there, I can't have the budget in place. So that unused fee was going up significantly. So we went to Dave, and a lot of these projects are the ones that you're approving, and you just approved in your agenda today. They're going to the board in July. We didn't really need to have the money there in June. So we just reduced the budget in June and put it back in July. So I didn't have to increase that line of credit. We told the bank, no thanks, we'll leave it as it is. So they couldn't change the rate. So we're still at like 0.1%, an incredibly low rate. And we're going to work on another alternative to cover the increase next year, hoping that the economy gets better and they'll stick with a lower price. But it certainly impacts banks, which impacts our line of credit. So far we're good. And Dave and and his team, we're always talking to each other, trying to find the best ways to manage this. We were able to do that without impacting the projects at all. And it saved the district quite a bit of money. So
in other words, what you're projecting is what we are planning in terms of our schedule. And I guess the other side of that is that we're still seeing construction inflation.
yes.
Yes.
Luann, I have a question. What is the rate that we're paying now?
On the line of credit?
Correct.
We've never drawn down on the line of credit. So all we're paying is an unused fee of 0.1%. So we're paying about $6,000 a month for the ability to say I could draw down on $80 million if we need to. And that's all being funded from the interest earnings from the sales tax. So I've got the interest earnings set aside in a separate account, and we're using that to pay the fee associated with the line of credit. So it's not cutting into the budgets for projects at all.
Thank you.
What is that? What is that pot that build up to now? $7-8 million that you've got?
It is, but I haven't added in the interest earnings for this year. I do that at the end of every year, and we're in the middle of year-end close. We should have that around the end of the month. It's crunch time in the accounting world right now. So we're doing all kinds of calculations and projections, and auditors are sending in their requests. So we're getting ready for that. By the end of the month, we'll have that. And I'm guessing that for the next meeting, we'll be able to do a presentation for you on the capital plan. I did a presentation last week for the board that was just the FY21 capital budget. We're still trying to balance out some of the outer years. The first year is done. And we've been able to fund all the things the facilities really needed to have and the extra computers needed for distance learning. So the future years are a little more complicated. So we're still working through that. So we'll have that ready. It's going to the board in August. So I'll work with Jim and Dave and get that on the agenda. So you'll get an overview of the capital plan.
I guess that'll show us what the projection is, because not all construction is getting paid from sales tax dollars.
That's correct. And actually, I think the only construction projects funded with sales tax are the 3 transportation centers and Roosevelt full service remodel. All the other ones, all the schools you're looking at, Verde, Addison, Meisner, we funded them with COPS. They are on the referendum project list, so you're monitoring them for sales tax because we have to monitor and make sure those projects are done. But they're not funded with sales tax. All the FCA work, the facility renewals, those are all funded with sales tax. Right. That's $994 million.
Right. I guess what I was thinking of is the sales tax numbers might be down, but it's also projected, I think, that real estate tax revenue will be down.
Yeah, that's something we're watching very closely. That's the one that keeps me up at night, is that. And if everything starts going down and the state ends up having trouble balancing the budget, there could be mid-year reductions. And when you get to next year's legislative session, the string they may pull is let's transfer money from capital to operating, which is what they did last time, which brought everything to a screeching halt. Right. So I mentioned that to the board when I spoke with them last week. We have not heard that. Nobody's hinted at it other than some consultants and some lobbying groups saying, this is something to keep an eye on. So we're certainly keeping an eye on it.
Okay. Michael?
Just a quick comment on that last. The real property values we've actually been seeing moving forward. People are closing. They are not seeking to cancel their contracts. It's interesting. Even the commercial seems to be moving forward, but I've got a feeling that's going to stop by the fourth quarter. One of the questions is, if we open up the schools, presumably there's going to need to be a fair amount of, I'll say, retrofitting. What are we going to cannibalize to pay for that? Do we have any contingency planning as to what we're going to need? Is anyone looking at that? I presume that I don't see anyone wearing their orange aprons, so I presume it's not like Home Depot in reality.
No, it's certainly not. And Dave can probably comment much better on this. I'll tell you that most of the adjustments being made due to COVID-19 is being funded with CARES Act money, which is on the general fund and grants. We have not tapped any capital money related to that yet. We're watching and seeing, I mean, the computers, we could in theory be funding all the extra computers from CARES Act. And we've decided at this point we're not doing that. We were planning to go to 1-to-1 over a 3-year period, over a 4-year period. We just expedited it to do it sooner. We'd rather have that money set aside to deal with the emergent issues that are going to continue to arise as we try to go bring all the students back. But I'll turn that back to Dave. I know they've been working on floor plans and a lot of different things.
Yes, and again, I go back to wearing my construction and design hat. It's not affecting capital, or at least at this point. Thanks to Leanne, we're not tapping capital yet. And most of the efforts that are going on, custodial and maintenance and whatnot, those are all being taken care of out of, as I understand, the CARES fund right now. We are working with the academic side to try to help them piece together plans as to how they might space classrooms. But again, it's not really, there are no overt construction improvements expected in order to address any sort of COVID things. Meaning I've heard people say, well, can't you break out the air conditioning so that each room's air conditioning is independent of all the others? Exactly. Thank you, Mr. Buffett. That was, my reaction was, oh my heavens. Now that's going to be a bit of an effort. We are doing things like our air filter replacement cycles are dramatically increasing.
Court meeting is ongoing.
It's going to be very costly to do them much more frequently, but it's an effort that is necessary to ensure that transmission of any airborne bacteria would be taken out of the air as quickly as possible. So we're just going to do what we have to from an operational standpoint.
We rent some tents, we put them out over top of the football fields and put the desks out there, and we'll have not a problem with air conditioning.
We may be looking at those outdoor areas, especially where they have roofs like play areas and, doing certain things. So I have a significant concern on, I'll use the term cannibalization, both on the financial side as well as on the manpower side as we move forward. And I saw this rush after Stoneman Douglas, where parents demanded, and the governor, suspending folks because things weren't being done immediately, no matter what it was. And I have this significant concern, especially where we want to protect children, that what we do is rational and focused, and that it also streamlines into everything else that we are doing. And listening to this, and I got to say, I appreciate significantly the flexibility with the work that's occurred and the financing. And I've also had to say, the adult ed building being finished is just a remarkable effort, both by finance and facilities. But I'm looking for a real plan to be there. I will say in part, this is a question with an expectation of failure. I don't see how you can do that with manpower and financial limitations as a practical matter, and I don't think you could, even if we had unlimited funds, just looking at time. And with the expectations that are being created out there, how are we going to respond to the parents and to Tallahassee as to why this cannot be done now? Or if you've got that magic wand, roll it out for them.
Well, again, I want to try to remind everyone that I need to stick in my lane. I got guardrails. I want to stay within the bounds. I don't speak for the senior administration or the academic side. I can help weigh in on some of the operational things, but even that, I'm not in charge of transportation. I am not in charge of food service. I am not in charge of maintenance or custodial. I do work with them all very closely, but for me to answer that in front of this group right here, I'd be way out of my line.
Yeah, I want to add something just to give you some additional color of the type of work that's happening right now. There's a organization, it's called the Finance Council. It's authorized by the Department of Education, and it is a group of, I believe it's 20 some odd CFOs statewide for school districts. Mike Burke is on that. I'm their technical resource. I run the Google Meet so they can meet. They usually get together once a quarter. They get together 4 times a year with the Department of Education and representatives from the Superintendent's Association, School Boards Association to work through issues. They're meeting weekly. Every single week, they're together for a week and a half going through issues with Department of Education staff. That's happening. That's finance. That's happening throughout every facet of the school districts, statewide, nationwide. Mike Burke is on a task force with Council of Great City Schools. So this is happening throughout the country, and a tremendous amount of work is happening behind the scenes. And all of us have, as Dave said, our lanes, but that's all rolling up to the superintendent and the school board. So I don't see all the pieces either. I see the finance pieces, and I'm lucky enough to sit in those meetings and hear the discussions, and I don't serve on it. I'm just sitting there monitoring and reading the chat, much like Jim is helping do right now, monitoring it. But the issues that come up from week to week vary dramatically. And the concept of flexibility and being able to pivot and change and react is so critical. And everything we're doing changes. And Dave said this earlier, what you think what's right today is not going to be the same answer tomorrow. So everyone is working to gather information and make the best decisions we can based on what we have at that moment. It's a challenging environment. I've never worked in an environment that's like this, where the rules are constantly changing. And that's across not just school districts, it's everywhere. So I guess I want to say there's a tremendous amount of effort going into this across the district, across the state, across the country to try to make sure we're all learning from each other and doing the best we can. Decisions are being made based on what we know, and we're doing just the best we can. So I don't know if that helps, but and there are plans being developed, and there were plans that, for example, there was a deadline to submit information on June 30th, and on June 30th, we got new guidelines from DOE, and it changed everything, and we had a new 2-week deadline. So, and it changes because the information we all have changes. So we are doing the best we can to plan and then revise the plans. So I hope that helps. It's not the right answer. I'd love to know what the plan is and be done and have the budget locked down and move on to the next thing on my list. And we can't do that just yet. So sorry, that's the best I can give you.
No, I understand that thoroughly. And I guess part of this is, as the decisions are made and as you're trying to found a foundation on this quicksand, if you would, the expectations of both the users as the parents and the citizens of the county, if you would, as well as the downward pressure from Tallahassee, perhaps learning from the situations that came out of Stoneman Douglas. Don't have words to characterize it properly, but there was this rush and this expectation that everything would be done to a 100% level. Right. And there were literally heads rolling as consequences. And that's not possible here. And how is the district going to get out in front of that, perhaps with other districts? The other thing that's causing me concern is I'm looking at industries that value their human capital. They are now looking at December, maybe, as being reopening times, potentially even beyond that. We have different factors that we have to put into play because of the need for parents to get back to work. And I understand, David, that is a decision that's at a different pay grade, but we still have to have information that we rely upon. And how do we know with the politicization of information that what we're getting is accurate information? And that's, I guess, like a warning signal. I don't know that you have an answer to any of that.
Again, I go back to the CORC and us in construction. We have the lane to stick to, and we really try to do so. We know that there's outside influences that affect what we do, how we have to do it, and we try to keep our ears to the ground and make the best decisions we can with the information that's in front of us. If I were to try to identify what is the right information at the right time, we would spin ourselves into the the groupthink, the never make a decision perspective. I don't have that luxury. So as I mentioned earlier, from my perspective and the construction and the construction oversight perspective, I'm trying to be as flexible. That's all I can do, is try to limit the activities so I can be as flexible as possible, because when that moment comes, I'm not going to have the luxury of saying, oh, give me 4 weeks. Let me try to figure out what we're doing. Those decisions, those higher decisions you're talking about, I can't speak to them.
Okay. I want to move on here a little bit. Dave, go ahead with your design presentation you wanted to do next.
Okay. David?
Yes, John.
Can I ask a quick question of David Dolan? In your presentation earlier, your list of upcoming projects, you were talking about New Blanton Middle School. Is that Sunset Palms?
It is. It's the land that's directly adjacent to Sunset Palms and just north of the park, the county park.
I was going to say, I was on the selection committee for the shortlist for the CM, and we haven't done the final presentation yet because of I guess they didn't want to do it virtually. Do you know what's happening with how they're going to be doing the final presentations in the future?
In all honesty, I think Mark Moon was on, but I don't know if he's on anymore. I know our challenge is what we talked about earlier with the 10-person limitation. Right now, we were actually trying to do selection committees earlier this month, where we were going to have them in person, but because of that 10-person rule, it limited our abilities. We had to do them virtually. That's why I think, David, you sat on the Grove Park architect shortlist was done virtually. I don't know if we're going to have an answer very soon, but the selection committee should happen, I think, sometime in July. Is it July 27th? Is that the date?
For Sunset Palms?
Yeah.
I don't think it's been scheduled that I know of.
Oh, okay.
John, I was on the one for Grove Park on Monday and went virtually, and it probably went better than if we were meeting in person.
Oh, the final presentation you did?
No, we didn't do final. We did the short list.
Yeah, I've done some short lists.
14 architectural firms.
Yeah, the short lists go fine.
But the finals have been scheduled virtually for the end of this month for Grove Park. So I don't know if they've got a system worked out or not, but it's on my calendar.
Okay. We'll see.
Yeah. Jim, go ahead. Did you sit on a selection committee, a final, or?
No, I did talk to purchasing though, and they are arranging for final presentations to be done virtually. So, John, I'll do a follow-up for you and find out when yours is scheduled.
Okay, back to you, Dave.
All right. Let me get to presenting again. All right. Hopefully everybody can see. I'm going to try to do these a little bit quicker, but I wanted you to see where we are. This is Delray Full Service. For those of you who are familiar with this facility, it's a relatively old facility. All right, not relatively. In school district years, it's a very old facility, campus. We have made arrangements that we are going to keep, not knock down, 3 buildings. It's called Buildings 2, Building 1, and Building 12. We're going to keep those 3, knock everything else down. except building 11. That's the gymnasium. It's a historic facility that we are going to rehabilitate. So the plan is rehabilitate Gym 11, keep these 3 buildings, but we won't occupy them. Knock down all the rest of these buildings and build a new adult ed campus. I'm going to try to skim through these. Okay, so this is the site plan. I know it's a little bit hard to see, but basically, as I said, these 3 buildings will remain. There's a parking lot. Right now, there's a chiller that runs those 3 buildings, but that'll go away. This gymnasium will be renovated for kind of a common space, auditorium type of thing, as well as a few classrooms. And here is the new facility that will be built, a 2-story facility to serve the adult ed needs of this campus. We've got an area over here that is planned for future modular expansions. As some of you may be familiar, right next door to this is Village Academy. These buildings down here are Village Academy. We're actually trying to work with both adult ed and the academic programs to try to kind of bridge the academic programs from the 11th and 12th grade right into the adult ed. So there might be a combination of shared services across those 2 campuses. This new building, I think I've got some plans in here. Here's some elevations and and please again, forgive me. This is in the very conceptual stages. This is the architect has been working with the academic side to try to come up with what we need to do and what it might look like. Got a small budget on this. This is a 20,000 square foot building, 2-story. And here's some floor plans. Most of the downstairs stuff is bigger spaces. These are more technical labs that have to do with like medical or computer labs or HVAC construction types of programs. Second floor is more classroom oriented. This is the gymnasium. Again, this will be rehabilitated to try to mimic as closely its original forms. And we're going to kind of do a more grand entrance, these stairs and flower boxes and that kind of thing. The floor plan for this gymnasium, you can see this is a big open area it could even be for community use, but that's part of that shared services within our facility. Again, this is early stages, so when we get further along, I'll be happy to bring you back more information on this facility. But that's our early blush of that. The next one I wanted to talk about was Triple O, the new high school in, I guess it's considered West Lake Worth. It's Lyons Road is the western edge right here. It's just south of, I guess it's Lake Worth Road. And it's directly north of this area down here. There's a canal, and then Woodlands Middle School is right there. So this will be pretty much right next door to Woodlands Middle. This is a cartoon sketch of the site plan with Lyons Road being the main road. This entrance here on the west is going to be the student and parent drop-off kind of parking area. This entrance off 147th Street is the bus loop and teachers. Obviously, you can see this whole campus right here with its athletic amenities out off the back. The buildings, this main building right here, this big blue building is a 3-story building. It's going to house the admin, the classrooms, and the media center. The orange down here, this yellowish orange, is the gymnasium, so it will have its own separate entrance off of this corner down here. The purple is the auditorium, and the back areas are like the performance areas, the music room, the band room, the choral room. And I can't remember what the pink was. It's the kitchen and dining. Right, that's the cafeteria. All the rest of these are high one-story buildings and a three-story building. What I find cool is this presentation I'll give you. Where do we stand on this project? Right now, it is done with DDs, and we expect the 50% CDs to be submitted in mid-August. So they're pretty well along on the design. So here's some three-dimensional renderings that the architect, PGAL and Renewals, put together. So I'm just going to scroll through them, and we can make it so that you guys can look back at them later on if you like.
This is Virginia. I have a question about that school.
Yes.
When did you say it was planned to be open?
Well, we're going to start construction in June of 2021, and we anticipate August of 2023 is the opening.
Okay, so we won't be doing boundary adjustments for at least 2 more years.
Well, I forgive me, I'm going to leave that up to Chris Garrison. I know that there's a process that I'm sure you're aware of much more than I, but yes, there's already a plan in place. I just don't know exactly when that boundary process will occur.
Hey, this is David Porter. PGAL and Schenkel Schultz, I mean, they're both large firms that either one could have handled this project. How did that combination happen?
I can't speak to the merging of the two, but I know that Schenkel Schultz on the national level didn't have a local presence, and PGAL partnered with them on this. So PGAL is the local expertise, and Schenkel Schultz benefits from a worldwide global footprint.
Sam Ferrari used to be one of the principals locally with Schenkel Schultz, and now he's a principal with PGAL.
And he is the lead on this project. This is all came across from
That's
Sam.
All bizarre because Schenkel Schultz has done a bunch of our schools. Okay.
This is Virginia.
Their business partnership, so I don't.
This
I
is
don't know.
Virginia. Another question again. What's the proposed capacity, student capacity?
Doggone it! I knew you were going to ask that of me, and I forgot to look it up.
Okay.
I want to say it's 2,800.
Seems about
I think
right.
it was at 2,500 at one point, and I think we've increased it slightly to 2,800. But I could be wrong. I don't know if anybody else on the team is in the meeting. Angel, are you here?
Yes,
So
the student station capacity is 2,600.
I'm surprised it's not bigger than that with how overcrowded the high schools are in the general area.
Well, this high school is a reliever for a number of high schools in the area.
Right, exactly. And it's all in one building, basically.
Yeah.
2 buildings. Yeah, you've got the academic and the cafeteria here. Yeah, most of the academic programs are in that big greenish blue building.
Right. Okay.
It's a very compact footprint.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Going to a 3-story and high 1-stories on all the rest of the campus. So again, forgive me. I'm just going to scroll through some of these photos. Keep in mind, you'll notice a few of them had like PBHS. That's just, we were just throwing something on there so that we know it was a Palm Beach County high school. As a matter of fact, I think you'll see in some of these, there's a picture of a blue jay. And we picked blue for the color. It's not necessarily what will be the ultimate color scheme pattern. It's more just a rendering to kind of see where we're heading with this school now. So the colors could change. we're not yet, I don't think Larry Clausen is on this call, but that we haven't selected the principal yet. And when that principal is selected, they'll play a much more active role in how the school will appear. Media center reading rooms, the big open media center.
This is very nice to see projects at this stage. We never get to see this aspect of it.
This was the tail wagging the dog. I got this from Angel. It was an excellent presentation, and I said, you know what? I really want them to see that we're not yet done with design, but this is a far along effort for the architect to generate these and allow us to see what it might feel like. And that is it. So I will make it available if it's okay with you.
Yeah, Dave, the question I had when you showed the cafeteria, are we doing all new school cafeteria designs in the newer version of our food court concepts?
I'm going to say yes, but Angel, if you're on the line, if you want to expand on that, because I know that the food service, Steve Bonino and the food service is actively involved with
Yeah, absolutely, Dave. We're doing it based on the new high school re-engineering concept of the food court style for cafeterias.
Okay, good.
Okay. I think that's, again, thank you very much for allowing me to engage this. I'll try to continue doing this in the future as we get projects where we can give you guys a little vision of the design process.
One more question on the cafeteria. With the other remakes of the cafeterias we've done, that's been all funded 100% by food service because they had to spend money on doing that. It has not been tax dollars. Are they allowed to contribute any towards the actual budget for a new school to do the re-engineering before it becomes re-engineering?
This is Leanne. I knew I was watching Dave. No, they cannot fund new construction. It's prohibited. And I'll also, just for the group, at this point, they have paused on new projects for remodeling kitchens because their budget's been significantly impacted by COVID-19. So the projects that were done, I think the one was being done this summer. But they really aren't selecting new ones. They need to see what the future holds for them with their balances. But new construction they cannot pay for new construction.
We'll just call it a renovation.
They did help out on like the Verde Holding School. They funded the portable cafeteria that's being used. Okay. So when it makes sense, we're looking to them to provide funding, but they're prohibited from doing new construction.
That portable cafeteria, by the way, at the holding school is going to be reused. We're using it obviously for both Verde and Addison Meisner. And as soon as Addison Meisner is done with it next June, we're going to disassemble it and ride it on up to Grove Park. And it's going to be part of the holding school at Grove Park. We've been working with food service. So that is actually going to get some good use out of the money that was spent.
Good. Okay, thank you, Dave. Any other questions on those updates? All right. Follow-up. Do we have anything on follow-up? I don't think so.
Yes, we sure do. We sure do. As you may recall, we at the last meeting talked about builder's risk, and Mr. Berger, one of the CORC members, volunteered to review our contract clauses for that insurance and provided us with concerns, which we addressed and provided back to you guys in your documents right now. And we also have engaged Don Noel. He's the risk manager for the school district, to give you a short PowerPoint. So Dave, if you'll cue that up, and Don, you're on, buddy. Don, we're not hearing you if you're there. Turn your mic on.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you all. I just wanted to start by saying I can't believe how much Jim looks like his relative there. Just uncanny. Thank you very much for your time. I'm going to go into this in a little bit of detail, but not a lot. I don't want to bore you, but we've taken advantage of a great opportunity to save some money. And saving money is always a good thing when we're using taxpayer dollars, right? Dave, next slide. We purchased this master builder's risk policy to provide property coverage for the new project scheduled from March 1st, 2020 to the 2023. Next slide. We bought this policy because we figured out that we're saving a ton of money, and we have uniform coverage for all the projects. We have streamlined the process for reporting and covering all the projects, and probably just as importantly, we know that we have the coverage. We don't have to worry about contractors and subcontractors, et cetera, having coverage and then finding out after a loss that we put somebody out of business because they didn't have the coverage or because we're at risk for building supplies, et cetera, that the policies cover. We cover the builder's risk and we cover the installation floater exposures. The builder's risk covers new construction. It covers renovation projects during construction, covers non-structural renovations when the contract term is more than 2 months. And it provides coverage for fire, windstorm, vandalism, theft, and other causes of loss, lightning, et cetera, et cetera. The installation floater covers non-structural renovations and the installation of materials when the contract term is less than 2 months. Not that this is critical to you, but just it's important that we know about all projects in excess of $5 million have to be reported to the carrier and endorsed to the policy prior to commencing the project. And our internal staff has worked on that and developed a process for that. And I think it's starting to run very smoothly. All projects less than $5 million will be reported retroactively on a quarterly basis, and we already sent in the first report that was due July 1st. Then we get invoiced for the projects, and then we also know that all projects under $5 million are automatically covered. We don't have to worry about missing something. Builder's risk exposures are rated based on multiple factors. The duration of the project's important, the number of months the project's in windstorm season, and flood zones, et cetera. All installation floater exposures are billed at a flat rate of 6 cents per thousand of contract amount. So a $250,000 project would cost us $150. And I wanted to show you, because I think this is the most important slide. We looked at Verde because we wanted to see what the contractor paid. And the contractor had to buy back their deductible and ended up paying $209,640.50 for the coverage for Verde, for coverage of $30.5 million roughly. Our premium would have been $70,340, and we would have saved almost $140,000 for a total of 66% of the insurance line item for that project. That's quite a bit of money, and I think you would agree that it's worthwhile for us to take this on. So Addison Meisner at $28 million, pretty much almost the same coverage. We got that done for $66,000, and you can imagine we saved 66%, almost probably $135,000 there. So going forward, if you add all this stuff up, and this is my first CORC meeting, and it's been a pleasure listening to Dave and all of the presentations. What you folks do is just amazing, and
I just think that going forward, the more money we can save, the more money we can spend on things the kids get to use. Next slide. Any questions from any of you?
This is David Porter, and actually this is for Jim Kennard, I think, for historical purposes. I'm thinking 10, 15 years ago, didn't we have kind of some type of master insurance program that all of the GCs had to buy in for their projects? Wasn't that for workers' comp? That was not for builders' risk, correct?
It was not builder's risk solely. So, but I can't really remember. But you're right. We had a master insurance plan, and I'm sure we saved a ton of money. It was very intrusive to the contractor, but I'm sure it turned out well financially.
This is Leanne. I can chime in on that a little bit. We had builder's risk, the old sales tax program. We also had it was a owner's controlled insurance policy that replaced their workers' comp, and it was run by the Florida League of Cities. So there was two different things. There was also, I think there was actually a third policy. The OSIP or MSIP, we just got the last money back on that. It took more than 10 years to run off.
That was my whole point of bringing it up.
Yeah, we just got it like 2 or 3 months ago. So Diane Howard, Don, and I have had conversations on that. I don't think the League of Cities is doing it right now. We haven't heard of anybody looking at that. We haven't talked about that program. We're saving so much money on builder's risk. We're getting this implemented. We did this before, but we always ran one big project first, and then we would have good comparisons, because otherwise we're going back 10 years to do comps. So I know we probably could have saved some money if we'd done this with Verde, but we didn't have the volume of work, because we talked about this with the risk management team. We had to have a large amount of projects for it to make sense to bring it in-house. So when all these projects get started and running, that's when we said, okay, let's look at Verde, let's look at the other projects, and let's kick into gear on this. So builder's risk, we're putting that on everything. Actually, we're using it a lot more than we did last time. Last time it was only on major construction projects. It's being used on all the facility renewal projects. So it's going down to much smaller projects, and there's been a series of calls, and I think there's another one either today or Monday, maybe Monday, to look at it again. I haven't heard discussion yet about doing an MSIP or OSIP. The first thing I always ask is, walk me through the procedure and the timeline and how it works, and does it tie up money for years? The fact that we got money back on projects that were funded with sales tax in 2005 and 6 bothers me. It wasn't a lot of money that came back, but it was the second or third payment that came back. So it's a project. And I'm sure Don, now that he's heard us talking about it, he's going to go back and research it and then come back to tell us if there's a newer, better tool out there for us to use. So you may hear more about that in the future, but that's another option.
Yeah, I'm perfectly okay with the builder's risk. I think that's a no-brainer. You pay it, it's done. I remember nothing but horror stories from the MSIP program. The contractors were complaining. The filing process was a mess. You know, the money was held up for so long. This is pay your premium, get the coverage, move on to the next job, and save all that money. So I'm all for that. Anybody else?
On my part, that's good to hear, Dave.
And from our perspective, we wanted to make sure that, you know, Don knows I drive him crazy a lot, because basically every one of these alternatives we're coming up with, I always point out to him, like, my staff is the ones that are going to have to do all the legwork. I want to know, is there a way we can standardize this? Leanne was talking about meeting with Don, and we worked out the system so that it's minimal impact to my staff. It's, as you said, it's get it done up front, because I was worried about this quarterly reporting. Am I going to have somebody looking up how much we spent each quarter on each of these projects and reporting it, compiling it, and blah, blah. If that were the case, I probably wouldn't be intrigued by it, but we've worked out a good system on this.
Good. Michael.
Do we have separate limits for each job, or do we have one policy with limits that everyone goes into?
Separate limits for each job.
Thank you.
Yes, John.
Don, thanks for the presentation. Question on your chart that shows the cost comparison between what the school was paying and what the contractor would have paid. You had a line item there called deductible buyout cost. What is that?
So what they would have is their base policy would have such a large deductible that they would buy another policy that basically paid for their deductible. So let's just say, and I'm just throwing this out, I can't remember the numbers, but let's say their base policy was $104,000 and it had a deductible of 5% of 30 million is a lot of money. So what they would do is take and go to another company and buy a deductible buy down policy and basically make that 5% into something they could handle, like $250,000 or $500,000 or $1 million bucks, probably more like $250,000. So that would cost them an extra $209,000, or excuse me, an extra $105,000, almost the same price as the basic policy. So just to cover the deductible, and so their total premium was that high because they had to do that.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Sounds like we're in support of it. Thank you for the presentation. That was informative.
You bet, anytime.
Okay, we are moving on. Approval of minutes. Anyone with minutes issues? All right, seeing none. Anything specific we want staff to bring back to us for the next meeting?
May I jump in, David?
Please.
Okay, so I have several follow-up items I've been keeping track of. I'm going to follow up on the selection committee for middle school PP for Mr. Cheshire. I'm going to ask planning about the boundary change schedule for 000. Leanne has volunteered to come back in August with the draft capital plan for us, and we'll be talking about MSIP perhaps in the future. That's what I have lined up.
Let's not talk about MSIP in the future.
Okay.
Let's dump the MSIP program. I mean, I remember that being nothing but a fiasco and a nightmare, and I think we ended up dropping it after a while because it just wasn't worth it.
I remember it being painful also.
So,
Mr. Doctor, when Mr. McCoy left you with both of your votes on the consent agenda and FC1 at 10-0.
Okay. Oh, and I'll update everybody on CORC too. We had an appointment by Dr. Robinson. Person was going to serve. It seems like they're also on the Port of Palm Beach, and they checked into some things and found out that it was marginal whether they could serve on 2 public type committees. And so they have rescinded their offer to serve on CORC. So Dr. Robinson is back to still searching for 2 people, I believe, for our appointments.
Does that mean we should have 2 people in total?
Yes, I believe so. Correct, Jim?
Yes, you have 12 or 14.
Right.
And how many people did you say were here today? 11?
10. Both votes were 10-0.
So who's missing today? Tom Berger?
Mr. Berger and Tradrick.
So how do we have 11?
We don't. We have 10. Mr.
Oh, we have 10.
McCoy was here. Mr. McCoy was here, but he checked out before the votes.
Okay. So we started with 11 and ended up with 10.
Correct.
Okay. Very good. All right. Anything by anyone else? All right. Then we are adjourned. See you next month.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye. Bye.